This week on Ridiculously Bored.
That made it look like I was off in the car.
Oh boy.
Wouldn't it be a great opportunity to introduce a new segment, which I'm calling Faith in Humanity?
I am definitely the bitch of the group, right?
Hello, human beings, my favorite people amongst the planet. My name is David Michael,
I'm Michael Carter.
and we are
Ridiculously bored.
All right, Michael, we're back. Episode 16. That's 4 full months. I can't remember the last time I did anything for 4 months without quitting. Can you?
Other than work and having to raise kids and not being able to trade them in, no, I don't think so.
All right. Well, both of us have been well known for our squirrel mentality. So this is actually pretty impressive, even though maybe other folks don't think that it is. I think it's pretty impressive that we stuck with it this long.
I have a funny story about that squirrel aspect that you just mentioned.
Okay, hit me with it.
We can jump right. Oh, Drink of the Week making an appearance. We can jump right into it. So, because my mom has Alzheimer's and a few of her sisters have Alzheimer's, and we think some others have Alzheimer's who haven't been diagnosed with it. I was worried that, hey, they always say if you can find out earlier, it's always better. So I actually went for the first test a couple months ago, and because of COVID, everything's taking longer. I went a couple months ago and I took the first test, and the first test is pretty easy. And I knew what it was because I saw my mom take it. So it's like draw a clock, hear 3 words. I'm going to ask you them again every once in a while. And then there's a few others. And so I took that test, and it's about 10 questions or so. And what I thought was funny was the doctor said, he goes, I would have given you 100%, but the sentence here doesn't have a preposition, so I'm only going to give you a 99. Because you're supposed to write a sentence at one point. So I knew that, what it was going to be. So when I took it, it was fine. Every doctor's like, look, everything's fine. This isn't a good indicator, though. He goes, because you're trying to catch it early. So we have another test that you can take. And he's like, that test takes about 4 hours.
Oh, Jesus. That's like the SATs.
Right. So I said, look, I want to take it because, it's in my family history. I want to take it. So I actually took that exam about a week and a half ago or so. And I went this week for my follow-up. So the exam is everything from here's a number, here's a longer number, repeat it back to me. Here's a longer number, repeat it back to me. And it's
Which,
things
by
like
the
that.
way, I couldn't do that in my high school days when I was the sharpest.
Yeah. I'm like, don't ask me for the alphabet backwards. That's not going to happen. Then there was other things like, here's a list, and it comes with a matching word. Can you match the word? And then they ask you it a couple different ways, and then they ask you, were these on the list? Were these not on the list? All these different things. So we go through this whole long test, and I finish. You don't get any results then. So I leave, go back this week. And the doctor's like, okay, well, he goes, I have good news and bad news. He goes, the good news is you don't have Alzheimer's. He goes, you have no signs of early indication, nothing. He goes, so that's the good news. He goes, but we did determine that you actually have ADD.
Shit, I could have told you that.
I said, Doc, I've known that for fucking 40 years, man.
You and I have been talking about that for decades.
Yeah.
We're like, man, if they were to diagnose kids when we were young, we both would have been for sure ADD, ADHD.
But it's funny that I actually now in my late 40s, I actually get diagnosed with it. And he's like, look, you seem to be able to handle it pretty well. He's like, you have a good job. You're doing things, you've gotten through college, all those other things. He's like, I suggest you don't take anything. He's like, just know that you have it. And I'm like, I said, thanks, Doc. I basically have known I've always had it. So it doesn't matter that you've officially diagnosed it. But my wife thought it was hilarious. That all things that came home with was ADD.
So question for you. One, are you young enough for that test to be statistically relevant?
Yes, there are people who start showing sign in their 40s. They consider it early onset. He said the other thing
that's really early though, right? I mean, I would consider early onset 50s and 60s.
Yeah, you know what? you know how I think you're right. I would consider that as well. But sometimes, like,
By the way, that's not clinical. That's just like kind of what I think. It's not based on any factual evidence.
somebody's protecting himself from the Google police. No, so but the other thing he said to me, which is important, he said, look, if nothing else, he goes, we've taken a baseline. He's like, so we've taken you at this age, what your cognitive ability is. He's like, if you ever feel that you want to get reviewed again, he's like, we can look at it in 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is. But he's like, we have a baseline to know what you were like now. So that part's good.
The good news is you don't have Alzheimer's. The bad news is you're dumb as shit. You failed the test.
Yeah. Wouldn't be the first. Won't be the last.
Yeah, no, I've actually thought about similar things like, should I look into it? Should I take it? I definitely will at some point. I just don't know that. I mean, my next question for you at least was going to be, does that mean you will never get it? Or that just means you don't have it now?
Means I don't even think they are definitively saying, I don't have it. They're saying there's no signs of it.
Yeah.
So to me, that means I don't have it, but they're all protecting themselves. Yeah. They won't say anything, but
of course.
If you do take it, I can help you cheat on it if you're interested.
I don't want to cheat on it. Okay. I would actually like to know.
How was your week this week?
This week was a cluster, man. We talked last week about just work being just absolutely overwhelming. I launched 2 international subsidiary ERP systems this week, and I know to most people that means gobbledygook, but the implementation is still ongoing. I mean, I was up till 2 a.m. last night working, and I got up at 6 a.m. this morning to continue working. I'll probably do a little bit of the same tonight. So it's just, I'm exhausted, as you can probably see from my lethargy, but it is what it is. Life goes on. I'll be done in probably a day or two, and then enjoy the weekend up north in some mountains.
Nice. What is the drink of the week this week, since you have it in hand?
I do. So this week, this is called a jelly donut, and showing you the glass on camera is actually probably not going to do much because it kind of just looks like a strawberry milkshake, but it's equal parts Chambord, which is a blackberry liqueur. It's a black raspberry liqueur, and rum chata, which is a horchata flavored rum. So they call it a jelly donut. I saw it on the rum chata website. They have a whole bunch of recipes, and I'm like, yeah, that's right up my alley. So I know you have a couple of cousins that like some of the fruitier drinks, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but this is actually pretty good. It's a little bit sweet. Tastes like a jelly donut.
I mean, there is nothing wrong with an umbrella and a drink and a piece of fruit on it, though. I will say that. That shit's good stuff. Those little umbrellas are hours of fun. So you flip it over, you break the thing, and then all of a sudden, fun's over.
Yeah. So we just released the last episode yesterday, which I like having a few days in between, releasing the episodes, because we typically get a decent amount of feedback that kind of ends up on the on the next episode. Have you talked to anybody?
Yeah, I've talked to a few of my cousins. They liked the episode. They thought it was really good. I heard from the person who won, and I guess he reached out to me.
Which one of the people that won?
Franco, which his last name is Salandra. You pronounced it Salandro. Immediately after
I think I pronounced it cilantro.
Yeah, cilantro.
I totally screwed the pooch on that.
Like he's a mint.
Sorry, Franco.
Hey, what do you got on your salad there? Cilantro.
I suck.
So he reached out to me, I think, as he was listening to the episode. So he's like, hey, I think I won. Then I got another message like, oh, no, wait, I didn't. Oh, wait, I did. So that was interesting. But otherwise, look, I get a lot of feedback from a similar group of people each time, There's
before you go on to that, and since you mentioned Franco, I need to put a disclaimer. The envelopes that went out with your gift cards, please don't open them in front of children. I'll leave it at that.
And if you, by accident, do, please post that story on our YouTube channel so we can talk about it.
Do not. I will be in prison.
All right. A selfie, if you would. Were there any technical corrections from last week?
There were a couple. at the very end of the episode, I think I threw out there like, hey, is venison reindeer meat in addition to deer meat? And so I took that upon myself because I was curious to look it up. It's actually any wild game. Like that includes like boar, like elk, anything that's wild game, that's typically stuff that's hunted, they consider to be venison. So it's actually quite, I mean, to me, I've had elk and I've had deer before and they don't really taste the same. So, but they're both considered venison. So, as is deer and reindeer. So yeah, so that was one technical correction from last week.
And when I looked up something where it said basically the reindeer is the version of the deer that's in the cold weather, and the deer tends to be in warmer weather. Not always, but that's what it said. So
Gotcha.
That's
All right. Yeah, that was one thing. And the other thing was someone had questioned my use of the term gaslighting. And I think it was in response to me saying about how I get into arguments with family members and they won't allow me to retort, probably because I get quite aggressive when I feel passionate about something. But so I looked up the Wikipedia. No, this is Wikipedia. This is I think it's like Encyclopedia Britannica's version of the definition of gaslighting, and it's actually quite interesting. So this term has been used quite a lot in the last 4 years, and I'm not going to say why. You'll figure it out when I read this definition that I did not write. Gaslighting, an elaborate and insidious technique of deception and psychological manipulation, usually practiced by a single deceiver or gaslighter on a single victim over an extended period. Its effect is to gradually undermine the victim's confidence in his or her own ability to distinguish truth from falsehood, right from wrong, or reality from appearance, thereby rendering him pathologically dependent on the gaslighter in his thinking or feelings. So it's basically modern day, you're wrong, I'm right, what you have to say doesn't really matter. Continually wearing someone down over time and making them believe that their opinions really have no sway in the discussion. So, and we've had some pretty powerful people in the past little while here use this technique to kind of get their way.
So, are you going to use a hot new term every week? Is next week on fleek?
That's definitely not new.
Yeah, I'm not the person.
You're a little bit dated on that one.
Yeah, sure. So,
how was your week?
It was good. So, I got the COVID shot this past week.
You got the vaccine?
I got the vaccine.
So, which group are you and how did you qualify for that?
I did not. The group I'm in is in New York and Connecticut. First of all, you have to be in that state, right? So it has to be your home state. So for me, it's Connecticut. But when they first started rolling this out, they made the requirements so strict that the first week or two, some shots were going wasted because they couldn't meet the criteria.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I heard about that. And so, the Moderna and the Pfizer shots need to be kept extremely cold, correct, like almost freezing, and they don't last very long outside of that. So if you don't have the capability to store a lot of them, then they go to waste, which obviously we don't want.
And that was one part. And then the second part is some of the vials were having an extra amount of shot in there in essence, right? Because it's done by a machine, and it's just like if you stack a bunch of bottled waters on the table. The line is relatively close to each other, but some are a little higher, some are a little lower. So that was another thing. So some of them, they were having extra shots. So I have a friend of a friend who basically told her, look, we've been getting some extra shots. We've been getting some last minute cancellations. And what's happening at some of these places is, the Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, ShopRite, whatever places you have out in Arizona, Cactus Farm.
All
whatever.
of those.
Yeah. They've been having extras. And at the end of the day, they announce it over the loudspeaker. Like, we've gone through all the right protocols.
Red light special.
Yeah, exactly. And so people are like loitering around these places waiting for it. So
you know what pisses me off about that before you go on? I've been calling 3 times a week to get my dad scheduled. My dad's squarely in the 75, plus age group that's supposedly eligible to get the shot. And I've been calling CVS and Walgreens pretty much every Monday, Wednesday, Friday to try and get him signed up. And every single time I call, they're like, sorry, we're booked out. You got to call in 2 days and check again.
They're gaslighting him. Mostly
That
you
would
should
be
use
the incorrect usage of that
you
word.
should use the website. That's what I did for my dad, but I'll get to that in a second. So when they're having extra shots, he reaches out, and the way it works is he gets in touch with you. You have to say yes or no right then and there. Like if you're like, "Oh, let me think about it," he moves on to the next person.
Right.
And you have to be able to get to the place within 2 hours again, because it goes back to the how these will expire. So luckily, the guy had 2 extra shots, one for my friend, actually 3 in total, one for my friend and 2 for my wife and I. And
So
we
did you
went
get the
and got him
Pfizer or the Moderna?
It ended up being the Pfizer one.
So you have to go back for a second shot.
Yeah, well, even Moderna you need to. Johnson & Johnson's only 1 shot. So speaking of the other way is to get, like for my dad too, he's in that age group. I've been trying forever to get him through all the websites, right? Because they said that's the easiest way to sign up. And so finally I've been looking and I found one that was 2.5 hours away that had an opening. And I just fucking booked him in for that. So he went this past Monday. He drove 2.5 hours, got his shot. And the way it works is if you get the first one, you automatically get registered for the second one. Even me. Yeah. So I'm not in the age group. I'm not in the appropriate category. But because you got the first, you automatically also get the second. So I'll get that in a few weeks. So it's great. So it's a good step forward here.
Yeah. Very good.
So yeah, that was the biggest thing from the week. And you?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the week was just absolutely shit just because of work. So I haven't been able to do much fun stuff. I have been keeping up with, for the most part, what's going on in the news. And I thought it would be fun because we talked about cancel culture last week. I thought it would be fun to reference a couple of instances of that this week. And again, this is just nothing more than like me repeating what's been read out there. There's no spinning on it or anything. But 2 things happened in the last couple of weeks. Number one, if anyone watches The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, I don't. My wife loves it. I used to watch it, but it's just gotten way too boring for me, so I stopped watching it. But the host on that got cornered on an interview, protecting one of the contestants on the show. She had been, I think it was 2017, 2018. She had been filmed at a plantation party, and apparently it's like a kind of sorority fraternity party where you get dressed up like, Gone with the Wind, Scarlett O'Hara, and you have a good time. And then she swears there was no ill intent, and folks in the South like their parties, but a lot of people said that was kind of a racist thing to do.
Well, I think there was also some Confederate flags that they had, which
possibly,
I know it's been around forever, and only in the last year or so that they've started taking it out of like fucking Capitol buildings and stuff, which is crazy to me. But that particular flag, though it looked great on the General Lee when I was a kid and I didn't know what it meant, that particular flag stands for something, right? And so the fact of the matter is wearing these Scarlett O'Hara type dresses is one thing, but I think that was involved as well. So now that's sending a message.
Yeah, and look, I'm not saying it could go either way, but all he really said, the question was geared towards him, like, hey, what do you think about that? And his response was kind of like, you know what, you should really give her a break. Like, it's really easy to do something to piss anybody off nowadays. You should kind of really give her a break. And that essentially got him fired from the show. He's a executive producer on the show, so he stepped down. But the reality is that comment did not go over well with anybody. And a really good friend of mine, in fact, we were having this conversation earlier today, had said that, it's one thing. I get that these things that we want to get rid of have a negative connotation to it. But when you erase them from history, you forget why they were there. For example, the Confederate flag, some might say, well, it represents a pretty bad time in this country's history that represents or supported racism and slavery. But the reality is, if you delete that from the history books, you're pretty much bound to repeat that to some effect because you're essentially removing it from our history. And so what happens if in 100 years from now, children grow up and don't know anything about that? Some might say, well, that's a good thing, right? You don't want them to know. But some might say, well, hey, this has never been done before. Why don't we try this? So I'm not saying that that's good or bad. I'm just saying, well, I mean, it could be bad, but erasing certain things from our history
it may have repercussions that we hadn't really considered before. So I found that really interesting.
Yeah. And the other thing is something where what we learn versus somebody else. So I have a pretty good friend who's German, grew up in Germany, didn't come over till his 20s or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and like it was shocking to me. And it was funny because like, I can't believe this is what they're doing. He said when he grew up, when they taught history, it was basically like page 5 in the book starts World War II. And then he's like, page 6 is we lost World War II. And then they move on to the next thing. He's like, that's it. He's like, they don't talk about anything else. So he's like, growing up, he didn't even hear about all the stories until he came to America. And he was like, they didn't fucking talk about it at all. So that goes back to your comment of, erasing it isn't the best thing. But look, especially in this
we
day
don't
and
want to
age,
celebrate it, right?
That's the other
Celebrating
thing,
it's
right?
that's the wrong way to go about doing it. But
educating
I just fear
is
that
one thing, right? Having a party dedicated to it. It's just like there's old comedies from the 40s, 50s, and 60s where people are in blackface because at the time it was accepted. And now, like, if you do that, your career, your life, everything is over. Like, if you do something like that, but 50 years ago, right? So again, it's like you said, it's good to know it. It's good for them to teach that it happened, but you got to be careful that people aren't celebrating.
Yeah. I always try to think of it because I have college aged kids, and I always try and think of it like, what if, they were in that scenario, and I can picture a scenario where, hey, we're in the South. This is cool to do. And, oh, by the way, let's go get some antiques or things that make this look authentic. Oh, look, someone's got, the General Lee flag or whatever you want to call it. Let's go ahead and throw that out there because it'll add some kind of ambiance to the place. Not thinking like, hey, by the way, this is now this kind of horrible, memory icon of a time that we all want to forget. But so I don't know. It's just such a double-edged sword. And the other one, moving on.
Wait, before you move on to the other one, just real quickly, if everybody can write in on the bottom of our YouTube channel, is David correct when he says scenario, or is it actually scenario? I know both are used, but I'm just curious who uses what. I would use scenario, not scenario.
Potato.
Yes. So that's good. So we'll move to London and we'll call it potato. All right, go ahead. What's the other one?
The second one, which blew my mind, and this one's about a week old as well, is Coca-Cola. I don't know if you've heard about the drama surrounding Coca-Cola, but they had apparently approved some diversity training that I believe up until a few days ago was available on LinkedIn Learning. And their employees had taken some classes. And one of the classes speaks to the effect of being less white and talks about how to be less white. And it says things like be less arrogant, or, it's just, it's another level of absurdity. And, having worked in large corporations, I can see how something like this may have slipped by, but the fact is that it did slip by. Somebody got a hold of it and whistle blew it. And now, just Google hashtag, I think it's called cancel Coca-Cola. There's a hashtag out there that's just going absolutely crazy. In fact, I was at the supermarket on Sunday with my dad, and he likes to get diet soda. And we went down the soda aisle, and I kid you not, there was not a single diet soda to be found except for Coke products. Diet Coke, regular Coke, everything else, the shelves were almost cleared. The Coke shelves were plentiful. I thought that speaks volumes.
Yeah, I know this isn't the right follow-up to that, but was there any Diet Cherry?
No,
I can't find that anywhere.
Cannot find that. No, the Cherry Coke Zero is absolutely. I did find Mountain Dew Zero.
The watermelon one I told you about?
I've never seen before. No, just regular Mountain Dew Zero. So instead of getting my usual diet Mountain Dew, I got Mountain Dew Zero, and it's pretty good. It's definitely different. It doesn't taste like diet Mountain Dew, but my wife says it tastes better. It tastes more like regular Mountain Dew. So, and I haven't had regular Mountain Dew in probably 30 years, so I couldn't even tell you.
I'm telling you, when progress hits your town, you'll start seeing the Zero with watermelon.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. We're usually a beta test for a lot of different flavors. Like when that Livewire stuff first came out, it was like Mountain Dew Livewire, the orange flavored, which I love orange anything. I'm wearing it, but orange flavored sodas are probably one of my favorites. And when that thing came out, I was all over it. And I had found out that they were beta testing it in the Phoenix area. I guess because we are such a diverse culture in Phoenix, because we've got, a lot of Mexicans, we got Latinos, we got Italians, we've got people from Boston, we got people from everywhere, right? I guess it's a good market for testing new products to see how it's going to do elsewhere in the country.
Actually, one of the things that's very hard to come by in Arizona is somebody who was born in Arizona. Like
100%. Everybody here is from somewhere else.
1 out of 50 people I meet out there is actually born there.
That is very, very true. Yeah. We have a lot of Chicago people. We have a lot of Boston people. Obviously, a lot of people from Mexico.
Please say Philly. I'm loaded.
No, nobody from Philly.
Fuck
I don't
you,
know
Philly,
anybody.
Anyway. So speaking of test markets and test products and the beta testing and all those different things, I have a friend who used to work for Pepsi. And one of the things he talked about was how some of these products have come out and then have absolutely bombed, right? So he was like, Crystal Pepsi is an example. And then he's like, they did a blueberry Pepsi many years after that. And he's like, let me tell you, he's like, we did fucking tons of market research. He's like, we didn't say to people, would you be interested in a blueberry flavored Pepsi? He's like, those were like getting constant write-ins. You should make a blueberry one. You should make a blueberry one. So he's like, finally, we made it. He goes, we tested it. Everybody liked it. We put it out there. And he goes, and it fucking bombed. He goes, so sometimes those test markets don't work that well.
Well, ask anyone who's ever taken a marketing class in their, in their collegiate career. One of the classic stories, there's 2 classic marketing blunder stories. Number 1 is the Chevy Nova. And as most people know, Nova in Spanish means no go. So why would I buy a car that doesn't go, right? So that was a marketing blunder, number 1. Not enough research done in that. Although, if you remember, our neighborhood had a gang called the Blue Novas. Do you remember that? And they used to drive those Chevy Novas up and down Franklin Avenue.
No.
And anytime we saw one, everybody jumped, because they would always throw M80s and fireworks out of the car at us as we were like playing outside in the streets. You don't remember that?
I don't remember those at all. You should throw eggs at their car. Listen to episode 3.
That was before the eggs. That was before the egg.
I actually
the
don't remember that at all.
The egg catastrophe of 88, please. That's episode 3 or 4. I can't remember. I think it's episode 3. Yeah. Anyways, so the Chevy Nova was one of the largest, American marketing blunders of all time. The second was New Coke. And at the time, Coke probably had a 80% market share in the cola market. Pepsi wasn't anywhere to be found, no matter how hard they tried to market their next generation next Pepsi, whatever. They just weren't anywhere near Coke. Somebody in Coca-Cola decided that they needed to create a new formula for Coca-Cola. And why mess with something if it's not broken? Classic marketing blunder. They came out with New Coke, and I think it lasted maybe 6 months.
I don't even think that long.
They came out with Coca-Cola Classic after that to bring back the old Coca-Cola formula.
You know what they said was the biggest blunder in that New Coke experiment? They asked a lot of questions about, do you like it? Would you drink it? If it was an option, et cetera, et cetera. They never asked, would you drink this over the other Coke? They never asked that question. And so when they took the old Coke away, they got their answer, whether they asked it or not.
Their minds.
Yes.
They lost their minds. Yeah. Pepsi gained a ton of market share. I remember that whole thing. It's a case study in horrible marketing. And like I said, textbook case study. Literally in universities, it's taught.
Yep. I like the old days when they just called it the Cola Wars, and you couldn't say the product name, couldn't show the other product. It was always like, if Pepsi was having a commercial, it was kind of the Coke logo, but it said something else, and the Pepsi logo was the colors. Nowadays, the commercials are like the guy's wearing a Pepsi outfit and like pushes the Coke aside. Like, they don't even give a shit anymore.
Or they'll have like the Burger King mascot beating the shit out of Ronald McDonald or something like that. They don't even care anymore. Yeah, that's pretty good. So one of the things that I wanted to do was, in light of the last few episodes where I've just taken a ton of heat for my negativity towards the human race, I said, wouldn't it be a great opportunity to introduce a new segment, which I'm calling Faith in Humanity.
And now if we had a violin or something, we'd play that in the background.
Maybe I will. I'll add it in the video in the edit. And the theory behind this, or at least in practice, what I wanted to do was every week tell a story about an interaction that I may or may not have had, well, may have had or did have during the week that either restored or diminished my faith in humanity.
So, question, just based on what you just said. So, it is a real story, or you might make up a story? And
No,
people
no,
have
it's
to-
100% real story. The only thing I could think of is if a week goes by and nothing happens, that makes me kind of trigger it. We may just kind of skip it for that week. But I thought it would be fun to keep a running tally, you know, of positives and negatives of, you know, just kind of random stories. And I'm not looking to justify my behavior towards the human race. I will try and balance out as much as I possibly can, the good with the bad. But I do have a story that happened this week that was the genesis of this idea.
So, does one of us tell a story and the other one votes on whether or not it put
Oh no!
faith
Oh
in
no!
humanity?
It's clearly apparent what the result is based on the story, and I'll give you an example of something that actually happened to me this week. That
Okay.
I won't tell you. I'll just tell the story. How about that? So there's a main drag outside of my house. It's a fairly large and main street. It goes on for a few miles, and there's a couple of stoplights. And as many of you know, I have a brand new truck. So I'm extremely protective of it. You know, when you get a new car, like, you know, any little dust speck, you're like, oh, no, you baby the
First
hell out of
scratch
it.
is the hardest.
Yes, it is. But once you have that first scratch, you're like, screw it. So I'm driving on this main drag, and in front of me is this, it's like a Nissan Altima, I think, and they're driving a little bit erratic. And I'm in the middle lane. There's 3 lanes. They're on the left-hand lane, right? And I kind of, whenever I'm driving, my goal is to stay out of everyone's way. I'm not the aggressive one. I'm not the super slow one. I'm kind of the, hey, like, everybody stay away from me and don't touch me and don't touch my car. So I'm always looking for craziness. When I see it, I usually slow down and I'm like, all right, just let it happen. Just don't let it happen near me. So this car's driving erratic. And then all of a sudden, she's, I'd say, about 10 feet in front of me, and she veers into my lane really hard. So I beep the horn, and then she jerks back out of my lane. And then she proceeds to cut across 3 lanes, almost cutting me off. I have to jam on the brakes. So immediately, I'm not thinking, well, this person's an asshole. Quite honest, I'm thinking, holy crap, like, this person may be having like a heart attack or something. Like, it looks, the way they're driving, I'm like, it looks like something's seriously wrong. So I speed up to get alongside them in the lane to look down to see, because my truck is lifted. So I'm looking down to see what's going on. And it's this sweet little old lady. And she reaches up and looks at me and flips me the bird and then speeds off.
So she is an aggressive driver then.
Faith in humanity diminished. I'm going to go -1 on this one.
So, all right. First of all, that's great. A little old lady giving the finger
It's
is
not
great. I don't care where it is, how it happens. A little old lady giving the finger is awesome.
It's not, it totally justifies how I feel about humans.
Well, I have a different story. It has nothing, didn't happen now, it happened many years ago, but it had to do with a old lady in the car next to me. So I was at a traffic light that is like a major 6-way kind of traffic light, because there's an entrance to the highway, there's an entrance coming off the highway, there's all the streets in there, so it takes forever, so the light's a while. And I had in my car a Yoo-Hoo, something like a Yoo-Hoo. If it wasn't a Yoo-Hoo, I think it was something like it, but it had to be shaken, right? Because it was whatever, it was not carbonated, so it had to be shaken. So I was shaking the drink, and I guess looking back, or from the outside looking in, I was shaking it in a rather unintentional, suggestive way that made it look like I was jerking off in the car.
Oh boy.
Right. So I
I'm
noticed.
sensing a weekly theme here with you and stroking.
Yeah, I'm a guy. Dick and balls are great. So she happens to notice that I'm doing this. She doesn't know what I'm doing. Obviously, she clearly now thinks I'm jerking off based on her reaction, based on her face. And instead of being like, oh no, sorry, I totally play it up as I'm waiting for the light to change. So I'm like now making it really look like I am jerking off when I'm just shaking the drink.
Oh, Jesus.
And I can see her out of the corner of my eye. She's just staring at me with her mouth open in shock. Like, oh my God, this person's jerking off in their car at a traffic light. The light finally turns green. I show her it's a Yoo-Hoo, and I just drive off. So that's my little old lady story.
Did you catch her complexion on the way out? Maybe she was disappointed. Maybe she was
lost
hoping it
faith
was
in
something else.
humanity.
So yesterday afternoon, I get a text from my daughter, and she's at the gym. She's working out, and she texts me. She says, "Oh my God, I almost barfed," and I'm like, "Oh my God, are you okay? Like, you feel okay? Is everything okay?" And she goes, "Oh no, I'm fine. I just got to the point in last week's episode where Mike told the story of being at the sex club." She's like, "Oh my God, I don't know if I could ever look at him the same way again."
So I had quite a few people who were like, "Oh, the vault." One of my cousins was like, "You went to the vault?" Like, he clearly knew what it was.
Knew what it was.
Yeah. It's one of those things. Like, look, as I said before, I'll experience anything new, different, unusual. I'm totally up for it. So,
Yeah, I almost think we need to go to Zona Norte just for, I mean, that's got to be a content gold mine. Can you imagine the stories we'll come away from with that?
yeah. And the divorce papers and the clap.
I'm not saying we do anything bad. I'm saying just walking around that neighborhood, we're probably a gold mine of stories.
So do you feel like when you're out, do you feel like weird stuff happens to you, or do you feel that you pay attention more and notice them?
No, when I am out with you,
It's
weird
always
stuff
me.
happens all the time.
Like what?
When I'm out by myself, nothing ever happens. I live a very boring life. But for some reason, add you to the equation, and either we almost get into a fight, we almost get arrested, some crazy shit happens, and I don't know what it is there.
Do you think that piece is partly because like I'm always stirring the pot, like whether it's for fun or being a wise ass? As I've said before, when I say something, a lot of my friends are ready for somebody to laugh as well as somebody to punch me in the face, right? Because sometimes people don't take the things I've said as funny as I thought they were intended to be.
I think it's a combination of that and a combination of when you and I are together, we're like two giddy little schoolgirls. Like, we pretty much giggle almost the entire time, just making each other laugh. So I feel like that in it of itself leads to just mayhem. Just mayhem, because we're always trying to one up each other.
Yeah. So that's very manly, giggling like little girls. Thanks.
No, I think it's funny though. Like, we just anytime we're in the same room together, we end up just like finding the weirdest shit to laugh at, and it usually ends up in a good story.
So I'm at a home. So the reason why I asked that is because somebody actually pointed it out to me. And sometimes it's not just like I'll tell the story of what happened. Nowadays, you can take a fucking picture of anything, anywhere, anytime. So I'm at a home improvement store, and there's a guy who is getting wood off the shelf and putting it on the cart. And they have special carts, right? When you get wood, you're not putting it in a shopping cart. It's basically like a big table. Mm-hmm. And under the table is his fucking adult child just hanging out because he's bored. So he's
adult,
like 15, 20, like not a 4 or 5 year old, like
right,
old enough that he could just stand next to his dad while he's getting these pieces of wood. So I took a photo of it and I sent it to somebody, and I'm like, what the hell's going on here? And I got back, why does weird shit always happen to you when you're out? And I think I pay attention to it more because one, I have, and this is probably my ADD, and this drives people crazy, I can listen to 2 conversations at once. I've always been able to do that. So somebody literally could be talking to me on my right, somebody could be talking to me on my left, and I can hear both conversations and I can answer both conversations. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing. So whenever I'm out, I'm always looking around and just taking everything in, seeing what's happening over there, what's this, what's that, and my mind's always racing, right? It's one of the reasons why I absolutely love riding my motorcycle. And the reason is because I don't think of anything when I'm on the motorcycle. The only thing I think about when I'm on the motorcycle is how to fucking drive a motorcycle, right? Or how to ride a motorcycle. All you fucking Harley guys, I don't want to hear from you. How to ride a motorcycle.
Everybody, please put in the comments how driving is not possible on a motorcycle.
Yeah. And so, like, even when I start thinking about something, even if it's some stressful thing at work, I start, and then immediately I'm like, oh, wait, I'm riding the motorcycle. Let me pay attention. Mm-hmm. So that's one of those things. That's why I absolutely love it. It's one of the few times where I really just kind of almost zone out when I'm doing something. Quick story, funny story about the Harley group. Every dealership that you can buy a Harley from has a Harley group. And as part of that, you, in a non-COVID world, you have a nice little clique of people that have the same interest, right? So when I wanted to get my license, I told a few people, hey, I'm going to go for my motorcycle license. Are you interested? 5 people were like, yeah, absolutely. When are you going to do it? 5 months passed, 6 months passed. Nobody does it. A year passed. I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to go get my own. So all these people who were like, yeah, I'll do it. Nobody got it. Just me. So the group, it's
so
people with
hold
similar
on a second.
interests.
Help me understand that. So you already owned the motorcycle, but didn't have a license?
No, there are people who do that though. So, but let me talk about the group, and then I'll just explain how I.
But did you join the group before you bought the bike?
No, you buy it and you get membership to it. So, at part of that group, there's people with similar interests, and you usually get together once a month. They have a meeting, and they all do all this other shit, charity stuff, stuff for the group, interesting things, road trips. Like, hey, Saturday we're going 3 hours north. You know, if everybody wants to come, you go up, you have lunch up there, you come back. So people have similar things. One of the early meetings, and this was my first year riding. You know, summer was kind of coming to an end, and I am definitely the bitch of the group, right? Like, it's pretty clear. So I happen to say, like, they're like, oh, any questions? So I raise my hand, and I'm like, yeah. How do you guys store your bikes in the winter? Like, what do you do? Where do you put them? And the guy's like, if there's no snow on the ground, we ride in the winter. And I'm like, no, yeah, me too. Just asking, you know, I'm like, that's cool. Yeah, me too. So a lot of them, like, they ride all winter. As long as there's not snow, ice, or salt on the ground, they'll go riding. Fuck that. That's not for me. Like, that's why I said, that's why I'm the bitch of the group. So, no, when you go for your license, you can get this is the weird thing about this. In Connecticut, you can get a permit and you're allowed to ride a motorcycle. And so there is a ton of people who just go permit to permit. Permit's good for 6 months or a year, gets ready to expire. They go take the test again. They get another permit. And the reason is Connecticut requires for you to get a license, you have to take a safety class. And the safety class is like 20 hours. So you have a couple different ways you can do it, over a weekend, over a few nights a week, over a month, however you want to do it. But it's a fucking process. But again, never having rode a motorcycle before I started riding, I signed up for the class first. I go there to take the class. There are people who rode their motorcycles to the class. Right? I thought that was funny. Then you take the class, and the interesting thing is the way this class is structured is the last day, the last hour, you actually take the motor vehicle exam. They have a Connecticut DMV person come, and you get certified there. So I actually passed the license exam, but wasn't allowed to ride a motorcycle because I hadn't had my permit. So I had to go down and get my permit, and then my license automatically became effective. That's the process you go through to get a license.
So you mentioned that in order to get your license in Connecticut, you have to take a 20-hour safety course. The thing that just absolutely boils my blood about that is the people that should be taking a safety course are not motorcycle riders. They are the people that drive cars, because people that drive cars are a danger to people that ride motorcycles.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it's an accident's caused between a motorcycle and a car. It is very rarely the fault of the person on the cycle. So it's annoying to me that it's a mandate that motorcyclists need to take the safety class, when in reality is it should be everybody else.
Right. It should be something they teach you in your normal driver's license class, right? Like they talk about that. One of the things for motorcycle riders is they talk about is you always have to assume that car didn't see you. So every decision you make is based on that guy doesn't see me. So if you're pulling up and a guy comes out of his driveway, you should expect he doesn't know you're there. If there's a truck, he doesn't see you. If there's a car, you try to move over a lane. They always talk about having an exit strategy, right?
Yep.
So, that's one of the things. But look, then it becomes, now the motorcycle riders, it's so hard to say fucking riders versus drivers. They'll say the motorcycle riders, now you're telling us what to do as drivers, but it just educate people. Like that's all it is. Just in the process. Have it as a couple questions, a couple points. Like there's nothing crazy about that.
Yeah, and there's the saying that says, loud pipes save lives, because people can hear you, they know that you're around them. That's 100% true. Yeah. I mean, if I rode a motorcycle, and I won't, least not in the state of Arizona, because people out here drive like they've never driven before. But if I did, I would have the loudest exhaust you can possibly imagine.
So the electric bikes that are coming out now have a sound
that's a
added.
problem. That's a problem.
They're having a sound added because it's too dangerous to be that quiet and easily out of somebody's visibility. So it's not as loud as a normal motorcycle, but it's still there.
Speaking of electric motorcycles, there's a great documentary on, I believe it's Apple TV, called, this one's called Long Way Up.
Yep.
There's 3 of them: Long Way Down, Long Way Round, and Long Way Up.
Yeah, with Obi-Wan Kenobi and his friend.
It's Ewan McGregor and his best friend, and they take motorcycles on these like epic, 7,000-mile journeys across continents. And in the most recent season, they did it on electric bikes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even a fan of motorcycles, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. I'm a big fan of documentaries, but I mean, I just absolutely loved it. One, you get to kind of get a feel for who they are as people, but two, just some of the challenges that they face. I mean, these motorcycles had a 170-mile range. So like every, 4 times a day, they're having to stop and charge these things. And it's just such a nightmare. And then all the weather inclements that they came across, it was just crazy.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I don't really ride in bad weather. I did very early on, though. I intentionally went out in the rain, and my wife's like, well, why are you doing that? And she's like, you said you're not going to ride in bad weather. I was like, I got to be prepared if I'm fucking stuck somewhere and then there's bad weather. I'm like, I got to ride in this rain to get used to it at least. And it's very uncomfortable, very, very uncomfortable riding in the rain. Not just like the getting wet aspect of it, but the bike feels totally different. It's like trying to catch like soap when your hands are wet, like, the bar soap, you're squeezing it. That's how it feels on the bike. It's crazy.
I don't like driving in slick weather. I can't imagine, being on 2 wheels and not 4.
Yeah. So you mentioned your new truck. You've mentioned it a couple times. What kind of truck is it? What color is it? Like, what did you get?
I got it's a Ram 1500 Rebel. So I don't know if we talked about this in the past. If we have, stop me. But most people don't know this, but the top 5 cars sold in America, 3 of them are pickup trucks. Number 1 is the Ford F-Series. Number 2 is the Chevy Silverado series. And then number 3 is the Ram pickup truck series, followed by like a Honda Civic and like,
Camry, I think.
Yeah, like something else like that. That was shocking to me. I see trucks everywhere, at least out in Arizona. I don't remember seeing them a lot when I lived in the East Coast, but we're, as we've spoke about many times in the past, I'm looking at moving up into the mountains. So I felt like, all right, my lease is up on my car. It's about time I get, I had a Jeep 4x4 and I absolutely loved it. I'm like, all right, I'm ready for another one. I don't think I want another Jeep because the upkeep on it was quite a bit. So I went with something a little bit newer, a little bit nicer interior. So, and the Ram 1500 series, well, just the Ram pickups in general, their interiors it was nicer than my Lexus, the interior right now. And it's got like, how the Teslas have that like 20-inch like screen? It's got the same kind of display on the interior. And it's freaking awesome. I just love it to death.
Is your truck the one that they're calling the Roadhead Edition? And I'll explain. There is a truck now where the gear shift can go down flat and you can slide like a table out. So you can like write on it. It's supposed to be a work truck, right?
Yeah.
They're jokingly calling that the Roadhead Edition because you can get that out of the way for the person in the passenger seat.
Mine is not that. Actually, the truck that I wanted is a brand new. It's a competitor to the Ford Raptor. It's called the Ram TRX, and it is. I think they start at like 90 grand, and it just. I mean, no matter how you slice it and dice it, there's just no way to justify spending that much money on a pickup,
unless your girlfriend who was rich just dumped you.
Yeah,
watch an earlier episode if you're interested.
Exactly. Yeah, 2 episodes ago, I think. So that's hysterical. I totally forgot about that. Anyways, it's the MSRP starts at 90, and they only made like a limited amount of them, like 500 of them this year, because it was the first year they were doing it. And it's just spec wise, it's off the charts. It's like 702 horsepower. It's got a Hellcat engine in it. It's an off-road beast to like slay all beasts. In fact, it's a play off of the Ford Raptor. It's a TRX, but the logo is like a T-Rex. It's and the logo is like a T-Rex chewing on a Raptor. So it's actually pretty funny how they kind of went after the Ford Raptor crowd. with that. But yeah, I wanted that, but could not justify the price.
I hear you.
So I got the next best thing.
So you talk about bad marketing decisions. A few years ago, so Ford F-150 has been pretty high up there every year. This is not a new thing.
34 years in a row, it's been the top selling pickup. 20 of those years, it's been the top selling vehicle.
Yeah, Ford, if you're interested in sponsoring us, let us know. So one of the things a few years ago when the gas prices really skyrocketed, I think it was maybe 10 years ago, Ford was like, we're not going to make the F-150 anymore. The number one fucking car they were just going to stop making. The number one selling vehicle, they were just going to stop making it. Yeah.
Like marketing ploy, yeah.
And somebody was like, you're out of your fucking mind. Like, just, all right, you might not sell as many, but still. So what color is your truck?
It is officially called Diamond Black. So it's black, but it's like a onyx, shiny, flaky black.
So if I send you what they're called is truck nuts, have you ever heard of them?
I have. My truck is a female, so do not send me truck nuts. So I will not wear them.
They could be truck titties. So for those who don't know what truck nuts are, I heard of this on a show once. I had to look it up. Like, look, you tell me there's a thing called truck nuts, I got to look at what it is.
I've seen them before on the road.
People have probably seen these. People might not know what they're called, but it's whenever you're behind a pickup and there's basically what looks like a ball sack hanging at the bottom of the...
it's a tow hitch.
The tow hitch.
Yeah.
So they're called truck nuts, and you can actually buy them online. So what is your truck's name?
It doesn't really have a name. I think we were calling it Darth for a while because it's black, and I've actually done a bunch of modifications to it since I got it, but I blacked everything out. So what little non-black components it had, they're completely gone now. So it's pretty much all black.
All right, good.
Yeah. Maybe I'll post a picture of it. Maybe I won't. I don't know. See how I feel.
For those who care about David's truck.
Yeah, I don't think anybody cares about it, so I probably won't. All right. I think we need to talk about the one crazy question.
Okay.
No, actually, we can't. We had teased from last episode. How far would you go to save money? We can't. This is the second episode where we've almost skipped over that. We can't leave a cliffhanger out there and then not talk about it.
Which would be kind of funny, actually. Like, you always leave a cliffhanger at the end. So, do you ever watch TV show Arrested Development?
You know what? I've seen 1 or 2 episodes, and while I love everybody that's in that show individually, the 2 episodes, I watched the pilot and like 1 other episode, and it just didn't do enough to keep me interested in like, what are there, like 10 seasons?
There was originally 3 or 4. They went away. Netflix brought them back for a couple more. And that is a show I can see it. You either love it or hate it type thing. I absolutely love that show.
It's one of those things where I got overwhelmed, where I'm like, all right, if I get into this, I'm committing myself for at least 100 hours of watching television. Do I want to do that? And I was like, no, I don't. Yeah. I just don't.
So in that show, I actually had to point out to my wife at one point, because at the end, they're always like, in the next episode. And she was just skipping those because we're binging it. And she's like, oh, I know what, I'm just going to the next episode. And I'm like, no, whatever they say in there, 9 out of 10 times, it's not in the next episode. So they just throw you some random thing and then it's not in the next episode. So, but that has never been our intention. It's literally, we would just forget if we didn't talk about it.
Although that would be pretty funny. But then they have to be like really outrageous. Like, you know, we're going to talk about the time Mike shaved his nuts and nicked a nut and then not talk about it.
But you can listen to episode 5 if you do want to hear
If you want to hear
that. All right. So do you want to go first?
All right. I'll go first just because I don't have a very exciting story. When I was younger, I was a penny pincher. However, the more established I got, the more I realized that time is money and it takes time to save money. And I usually do the ROI on it in my head and go, all right, do I really want to be here coupon cutting? How much am I going to really save and what's my time worth? But there was a time where REI, which is the like kind of outdoor, you know, if you're into hiking, biking, mountain biking, camping, REI is like one of the premier like retailers out there that sells all that kind of gear. And I'm very much into hiking and camping. And they have a garage sale. I think it's once every 2 to 3 months. And what they do is they put out all of the returns. All right. And it's an invite only event. You have to be an REI member. And people, you know, we talked last week about, you know, waiting out in line for 8 hours for the Pink Floyd concert. people will wait out line because they do. It's a first come, first serve event, and people will wait outside for 6 to 12 hours. They'll even camp outside in a tent to be first in line for this event because you typically get stuff, where you buy it, you use it for one trip and you're like, I'm never going to use this again. So I'll return it and say it's broken. Well, they quickly figure out that it's not really broken, but they can't sell it for retail value. So they put it in their garage sale. So you can get really expensive gear for not a whole lot of money. And when they sell it, they're marking it down. It's like 75% off. And it's GPS devices, like, $400 or $500 GPS devices. I bought a GoPro 1 year from this sale. And it was like $75 for a brand new GoPro that had looked like it had been used maybe once or twice. So, so I get excited. I used to get excited and go to these things. And this was before, people kind of took it too far. But I did get a Columbia winter jacket, a ski jacket. I do go skiing quite a bit. And it was a retail of like, I think between $299 and $350, this jacket, right? And I just couldn't at the time see myself spending that much on a jacket. I paid, I think, $100 for it at the garage sale. I took it home, and the reason why it was on sale is because there was a tear on the inside. Okay. So I took it home. I got on Columbia's website and filled out a support request for my brand new jacket that was ripped. And they said, send the jacket in. They sent me a brand new jacket like 3 weeks later. So for a measly $75, I got a $300 to $350 jacket. And to this day, it was probably the most excited I've ever been about saving money in my entire life.
So that's like gaming the system, right? And so there's a few companies out there, like J. Crew is one. Sounds like Columbia is another. Banana Republic, that like they stand by Patagonia. They stand by their stuff forever. Like Patagonia, they say that you can go like fucking 30 years after you buy it. You can be like, this sleeve ripped, and they'll give you a new one. They'll replace it. So, that's I love beating the system. So, all right. So for me, that's look. At least you paid for it. You got what you're supposed to. You ended up doing the ticket, so that's great. So I got a couple of stories. So. Couple involved my parents actually. You talk about penny pinching as when we were younger. Like we didn't have money, so a couple things that had happened was one, we in before 9/11, you used to be able to fly. You didn't even have to give a license. You used to be able to smoke on flights too. Yeah. So there was that as well. But we were going on a flight to see family in Colorado. One of the few times we actually flew somewhere. Again, going to see family because then you don't have to pay for hotel and all the other stuff that goes along with it. But my dad tells me this story. I don't remember me doing it, but he's told it over and over the years. So if you were 2 and under, you flew free. So my dad told him I was 2. I was not only not 2, I was like less than a couple days from being 4. And so much so that my dad tells the story that the flight attendant...
You weren't a small child.
The flight attendant asked me, how old are you? And I said, well, I'm 2 today, but when we land, I celebrate my 4th birthday while we're there. So that was to save some money. Another thing that my dad has done I've had numerous stitches, right? I've had them in my chin, my chest, my finger, my leg.
Usually when your parents are out of town.
Yeah, yes, that's usually more serious. But I had stitches in my hand, and at the time, now being educated and being actually involved in the healthcare field, right? I'm an accountant who does hospitals and things like that. You realize that when you go for a surgery or you get something done, there's a follow-up visit that's included, right? You don't have to pay another fee to go. So at the time, my dad didn't know that. So I got stitches in my hand, good 6 or 7 stitches. And my dad was like, no, we're not going back to take it out. That costs money. So he fucking took them out himself to save a couple bucks.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So that was some stories from my dad.
And now you need a tetanus shot.
Yeah, exactly. My cousin Nostrils thought he would show up because he is probably the cheapest person I know in my life. But I'm not going to tell any stories about him because I don't want him to get the satisfaction. So a couple things that I've done over the years. So I have switched prices on things. So there is a like a framing store where near we grew up where they used to have on the corner a piece that had the price, and these things slide on and off. It's just there to protect the frame. So you could easily slide it off one and put it on another. So this frame that was $60 now all of a sudden is $5. So I've done that before in my life. So yeah, those are just some of the things that I've done. I don't do the couponing stuff. I do it when it's easy. So like Costco and BJ and a lot of those now, it's all electronic. So you just got to sit in front of your phone 5 minutes before you go there. And you can be like, add, and you can save money that way. The other thing that we use a lot actually is Rakuten. My wife always gives me a hard time. I usually say it wrong, but Rakuten, I don't know if you've ever used that. They have to be selling your information to drug dealers because I don't understand how this thing works. So if you're going to buy something from Walmart, you go to the Rakuten website, you type in Walmart. They'll say, oh, Walmart's giving a 2% rebate to you if you shop there. You hit Walmart. It actually brings you to the Walmart site. You log in with your normal password. You buy whatever you're buying. At the end of it, it says, Rakuten says you've completed your shopping trip. You'll get your cash back in a few days. So, like, you get all this money back. And we've gotten a lot. Like,
so you use them as an intermediary to buy from Walmart.
Correct. And so
I can tell you exactly how that works.
Well, they're doing the click-through stuff. They're getting the traffic to go to their site. There's ads on the side.
It's called affiliate marketing. Yeah. That typically companies like Walmart will pay 5% of whatever you spend, 5 to 10% of whatever you spend back to whoever sent you there, right? So what they're doing is they're saying, okay, if you give me 10, I'll keep 3 and I'm going to give 7 back to the person as an incentive to come back and do more of it, and it's a volume play.
Right. Exactly. That's what they're doing. And they highlight that as much, saying
they're not selling your info to drug dealers. Oh, they may, but they're not making money off of that.
I like my story better. I hate IT people. Fuck you, IT.
I'm going to sound like a know-it-all. God, I hate this show.
Yeah. Faith in humanity restored. So the other thing, though, is if you pay attention, like Black Fridays, around Christmas, things, the day after Christmas, things like that, some of them have an extreme amount of rebates. So like when I bought my snowblower 2 years ago, they offered 15% back. So I paid in essence $1,000 for a snowblower and I got fucking $150 back. So like it's great to take advantage of that.
See, I won't, like if someone says, hey, we're having a 25% off sale, I won't go buy something just because they're having a sale. The funny thing is, I've been developing e-commerce websites for most my entire career, and mostly business to business. So we don't really sell to consumers. So my advice to my clients and/or companies that I work for is never ever offer discounts or coupons, because what typically happens is you create behaviors in people there where they wait for the coupons.
Right.
All right. So I'll give you a perfect example. I don't go looking for deals, but if I'm on a website and I'm in the checkout process and I see a coupon box, pump the brakes, pop open another tab, go to Google, type in store name coupons and see what comes up. And I'll sit there and I'll plug in as many coupon codes as I can possibly find to see if I can get a discount.
Yeah.
All right. So it's one of the worst things I think you can do if you're an e-commerce reseller is offering those coupons. But, and occasionally I'll hit pay dirt. Like there was one time where I was expecting to pay $200-300 for something, and I found a 40% off coupon, and it was like, all right, honey, we're going out to dinner for no other reason than I just saved us a bunch of money.
So don't use coupons. Don't offer coupons. Ridiculously bad advice from David and Michael.
No, I think it's ridiculously good advice.
All right. So what else you got for me?
One crazy question.
Okay. Go.
And go ahead and say what it is before I belittle you for it.
So I thought we had something in the one crazy question. I noticed
we did.
You took it out?
No, I put it in. It was missing when I looked at the notes this morning, so I believe you took it out.
No, it was. I didn't take it out. I noticed there was none there, so I put in one.
I put one in 2 days ago, 3 days ago. Really? God damn it! Somebody else must have access to it.
So I put in one today, about just a couple hours before we started, because I didn't see any there. Oh. And so the one crazy question that I came up with is, what's something you have done in an elevator? Now go ahead. Restore my faith in
can't.
humanity.
I can't do it. There's only one thing, and I can't talk about it. Everything else I've done in an elevator is completely normal. So go ahead, your turn.
Oh my God, you're so not fun.
I can't do it.
All right,
My mom listens to this.
So let's talk about some of the low-hanging fruit, right? Like farting in an elevator. I take great joy in a fully packed elevator, letting a silent one slip out and keeping a very straight face as everybody else around me eats it.
All right, so I'm going to call bullshit on that because I've been in a very packed elevator when you've let one rip and there is no straight face. All I hear is tee hee hee.
Well, that does happen.
You cannot keep it in. You cannot keep it in. And I'm like, oh, you didn't.
You know, that depends on where I am. If I'm in my work elevator, I force myself to keep a straight face. If I'm at like a department store, then I'll end up starting to
I've
giggle.
been in Vegas 100 times with you, and there have been a numerous amount of occasions where you start giggling in the elevator, and there's like 8 people behind us, and I'm like, all right, we're getting off the next floor.
The other thing I really like doing in an elevator, because I think it's always appears to be taboo. People don't do it. Is most people don't talk to other people in the elevator. And I'm not saying you walk on with somebody from work and you're bullshitting, you're telling a story, you keep talking. I'm talking about get in an elevator and actually say something to someone. So I intentionally start doing that in elevators just because I find it funny. And it makes everything uncomfortable, and you can see the person's like, what the fuck's going on? Why is this person talking to me? And like, it's not even like, oh, how's your day? It'll be like some totally random thing. Like, oh, when you put on those shoes this morning, did you realize it was going to rain today? Because it seems kind of silly to be wearing those boots when there's no chance of rain. So like stuff like that, and I'll start a discussion. So I've done that as well. I actually enjoy that. And I always tell people always confuse how much I talk for wanting to talk to people. Right? There's a difference. I'm not here to have a conversation. I'm here to say my comment and move on. It's like on a shopping line.
Truer words were never spoken.
Yeah, it's like on a shopping line at a supermarket. I'll say something just because I think it's funny or something in the cart, and then all of a sudden it's like a conversation, and I'm like, yeah, I have no desire to do this. Like, I don't know what just happened. And so I got to try to
I said what I needed to say. I'm done.
Slowly get myself out of the situation.
That's funny.
Yeah. And then one time an elevator actually got stuck. So it was, going between.
That's one thing that's actually never happened to me that, I mean, almost everybody else I know has been stuck in an elevator. I've never been, knock on wood, ever been stuck in an elevator.
Knock on wood, use Romans. So listen to the last episode if you're interested. So I got stuck in the elevator. It was me and one other guy. And, look, you hear stories. People are on there for hours. It took forever to get off. People peeing in the corner, like all of those type of things. The elevator gets stuck. The announcer comes on. He's like, hey, we don't know what happened. We're looking into it. Give us a few minutes. We'll get back to you. We're both like, okay. Maybe 2 minutes pass by. Turned to the guy and I said to him, if we're here all night, I'm letting you know I'm eating you for dinner. So now I've said that to him, and now we're stuck in the elevator. And it was he would not look at me. He would not talk to me.
Didn't think that one through, did you?
I just thought, I thought it was a funny comment. He fucking would not look at me, would not talk to me for the whole about 10 minutes that we were waiting in the elevator for it to start moving again. So I thought that was pretty funny. So clearly you've had sex in an elevator. Why don't you talk about it?
No, let's talk. Let's move on to the joke vault.
All right. So each week on the joke vault, you continuously, like the deer and the reindeer you asked me yesterday, you continuously point out 25 years after the fact, like, wait a minute, did you think about this? NASCAR only makes lefts.
No, but it's just the inquisitive person in me. Like, that's all I think about is I'm like, I wonder if he thought about this. I just like to ask questions.
So I always know those are coming when I read these. Now, last week's, as we talked about last week, I'm like, I have no fucking idea what happened here. This is the story, and I told the joke vault thing. And I'm like, I don't know how I got there. I don't know how I ended there. This one, after I read it, I'm relatively sure it was an easy process of how I got to this. I can pretty much figure out what happened. And it's actually a little morbid, but Here we go. Some inventors should be praised while others should be shot. And not just shot, but shot before they actually give their invention to the world. The inventor of the tissues should be praised and celebrated. The inventor of the handkerchiefs, what made that person think keeping snot in your pocket was a good idea? Now, now you got to think about I'd be on stage, feeling the crowd. Like, it's just, I'm just reading from a piece of paper. So
you've clearly thought this one through.
well, yeah, because this one I was like, oh, I know where I got this from. Now, the inventor of cling wrap, death is not even good enough for that person. That thing, when you try to pull it out, it sticks to your arm, the box itself, but it never sticks to the Tupperware that you try to stick it to. I recommend the inventor of plastic wrap be wrapped in it mummy style and tossed in a lake. And I know it will hold because it sticks to itself. So clearly this one, I was having a little bit of trouble with cling wrap or plastic 100%. Wrap that thing. And I went and wrote that thing down.
For what it's worth, I absolutely, although I will say modern technology has done wonders for press and seal. Yeah. That saran wrap bullshit that we grew up with was absolutely fucking horrible. Yeah, it stuck to itself, but like nothing else. Yeah, for sure.
The press and seal one is major advancements in that one. That one's good. And there's
another
one.
That's basically it's basically like a big sheet of tape. Yeah. Let's be realistic.
But also now, either cling wrap, plastic wrap, whichever, they sell one now where it comes in a pretty good, sturdy box. And you pull it out like you would, like almost wrapping paper. You bring it up and out and you put it on the item and then you can slide a ribbon across it to cut it.
Yeah.
So you can actually position it before you actually do the cutting because once you cut it, it fucking shrinks up and just sticks to itself. So I hate that stuff.
Agreed. So, we can agree on that.
Yeah. Before we end, I want to just talk a couple random things I stumbled across this week. So we made brownies the other day, and we had a couple cousins over. Actually, so I don't get yelled at by her. She made the brownies, and she brought them over. But
she being your cousin?
My cousin, yeah. Okay. And so we talked about the inside versus the edge. It was just a quick passing discussion. Mm-hmm. I'm an inside guy. I don't like the edge. I think it's dry. And my cousin Yanni was like, I like the outside. That's the way you should go. So I'm just curious. Do you have a view on this, inside or outside, when it comes to brownies?
When it comes to sweets, cookies, brownies, blondies, all that good stuff, I love the gooey center. Yeah. Even cornbread. Like, I even like undercooked cornbread, like the gooey, doughy center, more so than anything else. Banana bread, any kind of sweet treat, I'm all about the gooiness. Not a big fan of the corners. I'm pretty much the same way with like pizza too. Like if you ever have like that Sicilian style pizza where it's like a square or a rectangle, like I typically stay away from the corners just because I like the cheesy parts and the saucy parts, not the doughy parts.
Yeah, same with me actually. So I was just curious. And they also sell a pan that you can make just corners. That's the way the pan is designed. I'm like, what a fucking waste.
That's fucking waste.
The other thing that I thought was just a random comment I read. So we have cats now, as I've talked about.
Mm-hmm. How are the allergies going?
I feel it, especially when I'm around them for a little. And so like at night, I tend to sit by them for a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I feel it, but as long as I wash my hands as soon as I get up, I've been okay. So thankfully that's been okay.
So here's where you're about to feel the pain. Cats have dander, and it's you don't see it. In about 2 to 3 months from now, their dander will be on every soft surface in your house: couches, beds, sheets, pillows, everything.
Yeah, because those fuckers are everywhere too. I push them off. You got to push them off the counter. They're on every chair.
Even if they're not, have you ever, when the sunlight comes through the window and you see the rays of sun, but you see all these little particulates in the air? Dander's that fine that it kind of floats around, and you breathe that shit in, and man.
So to creep anybody out, if you don't have pets and you see that, that's your nasty ass dry skin in the air.
Yeah. Cellular data.
So I was looking into getting their nails cut, right? We've ordered something to do it, but I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. My wife's like, she's not sure if she could.
Am I an asshole if I correct you and call them claws and it's called declawing them?
No, not declawing is... So one, yes, you are an asshole. Two, declawing is actually considered extremely inhumane now to do that.
Really?
So
Oh,
cutting and
interesting.
trimming their nails is different than declawing them. So declawing them is actually taking out the claws. That is not encouraged. It's not done anymore. David believes in using leeches to cure medicine nowadays, to cure medical and blood diseases. That's where he is.
I have an elixir. Would you like some elixir, sir?
So now I know I've just made fun of you, but to be fair, when we got the cats, I said to my wife, "We're going to get them declawed, right?" She's the one who told me all that stuff that I've just told you. So I'm going to be honest with you. But so I'm trying to find, in essence, I don't know if you call it a cat spa, cat care, whatever. I'm trying to find something where I can get their nails cut. So it seems, and if we would have got a dog like I wanted, this wouldn't be a problem. There is so many options for dog stuff and much less for cats. And so I've been having trouble finding a place that does this. But while I was looking,
cats, like, they do their own thing. Have you ever heard the term, it's like herding cats?
yes.
Cats are like notoriously difficult. That's why they don't have anything for cats.
And we have scratching posts, so they've been using that, but I figured, we'd look into it. So every time I'd go to a site, I thought it was for cats, and it starts with saying it's for cats. The next thing I know, it's giving me fucking dog options of what to do. I'm like, what just happened? But one of the things I came across, and you have 2 dogs, and this is why I asked this. And look, again, I think I look for the weird. So this was something that caught my eye.
I already know where this is
There
going.
was a thing called, I want to make sure I get this right, anal gland expression. If you ever had to do that to your dogs, do you know what the fuck that is? I didn't even look up what it was. I just saw that term.
I would never fucking do that to my dogs. That's why you send them to the doggy spa, is because that's part of the thing that they do while they're there. But yeah, apparently their glands get plugged with something. I don't know. You can usually tell because it gives off like a kind of a fishy smell when they're plugged, and you know it right away, and you're like, oh, Jesus. So you just book an appointment for the doggy spa and then have somebody else take care of it. I'm sorry. I didn't sign up for that shit.
So is it the equivalent of a happy ending for a dog, like at the spa?
It is not. I don't believe so.
Like I said, I don't know what it is. I didn't Google it or nothing. I'm like, I saw the term. I'm like, I got to ask David about this. He has dogs.
And to be quite honest, I've owned dogs my entire life. I had not heard of that until, I would say, within the last 6 to 12 months. So I'm not all that smart.
All right. Next week. This was
I
your
have a great
suggestion.
idea. I have such a great idea. I think it's going to be hysterical. All right. So there's a game. You familiar with Jelly Belly jelly beans?
Yes, sir.
All right. Some of the best tasting jelly beans, and they have thousands of flavors, right? So they came out with a game. It's called Bean Boozled, and there's a couple different variants to this game. So the most frustrating thing about Jelly Belly jelly beans is they have so many flavors. If you ever get one of their like mixed bags, it takes a map with like 200 photos on it to figure out which one you're actually eating. And cherry and cinnamon and blood all look the same, right? So you're like, I don't know which one I'm getting, but I think it's cherry. I hope it's cherry. Oh, damn it, it's not cherry. Well, they have a game called Bean Boozled, all right? And it has, like 10 different flavors, 10 different colors, okay? But each color represents 2 different flavors. So you get green, and green can be either green apple or green can be booger. All right. And I can't imagine booger tastes anything like green apple, and you don't know what it is. So basically you spin a spinner and it says pick a green. We both pick a green and we eat it, and then we both may get green apple, we both may not get green apple, we don't know. There's a variant of that. I think it's called the Fiery Bean Boozled. All right. And I don't know if you're up for it, but it's got the same thing, but it has jalapeno, habanero, ghost pepper, Anaheim, like all of the chili peppers that have any level of heat, in addition to like cherry, cinnamon, peach, strawberry.
All right, well, so earlier I said I would try anything. I lied. No, I'm kidding. Look, I'll try. I'll try the hot one as well. I am not a fan of hot stuff.
All right, so let's do Bean Boozled, the normal one, next week. And if we like it enough, then maybe we can come back and visit. I gotta believe it'd be much more palatable eating a habanero than it would eating boogers.
I'm not encouraging eating boogers, but that's not my choice. I would choose the boogers over the habanero.
All right. Being Boozled next week.
All right. With that, I'm Michael Carter.
And I'm David Michael.
And we are Ridiculously Bored.